devrait voter puisqu'on est tous européens, on devrait prendre nos décisions tous ensemble.
26 maja idę na wybory europejskie.
Je mehr engagiert man ist, desto besser funktioniert die Demokratie.
Bei der JEF engagiere ich mich, weil ich Jugendpartizipation sehr wichtig finde und ich es super spannend finde, immer diese ganzen engagierten Menschen zu treffen, die Geschichten zu hören und gemeinsam was zu bewegen in Europa.
Tokrat grem volit za človekove pravice in pravno državo, ki sta najbolj pomembni trenutno v celotni Evropski uniji. Zato si bomo tudi v Društvu mladih Evropejcev prizadevali, da te vredноte tudi ohranimo.
Ще гласувам на тези избори, защото смятам, че моят глас е от значение и защото искам да избера тази Европа, в която искам да живея. И ще гласувам на изборите на 26 май за Европейския парламент, защото смятам, че моето мнение е от значение и моят вод е важен. Избирам Европа, защото тя ми позволява да пътувам, да се запознавам с нови хора и да се уча постоянно на нови неща.
Zato bom izbral Evropo.
Аз избирам Европа.
Аз избирам Европа!
"45 young Europeans travelling 7,000 kilometers through 15 countries.
Raising awareness on youth participation and the 2019 European elections.
Meeting hundreds of European citizens. We might not always speak the same language,
But we managed to understand each other, debating and spreading knowledge about the EU.
Along the road, we asked what kind of Europe you want to see. Social and inclusive, safe, diverse, economically stable, peaceful, sustainable, and federal. We all have our own reasons to choose Europe. Take responsibility and use your right. Vote between the 23rd and 26th of May.
Europe is what we make of it, and we choose Europe.
Tokrat grem volit za Evropo, ki bo dajala še več priložnosti mladim.
V zadnjem desetletju so predvsej trije dogodki pretresli Evropo. Begunska kriza, finančna kriza in Brexit. Verjamem, da lahko le trdna Evropa se hitro odziva na krize, zagotovi varnost vsakega državljana in zaščiti evropske vrednote. Zato grem tokrat volit za varnost in sodelovanje.
Ich stehe für ein grenzenloses Europa, in dem sich alle Menschen zu Hause und wohlfühlen, egal welche Überzeugungen sie haben.
Elijo Europa porque una unión cohesionada y unida nos ayudará a seguir creciendo como sociedad.
Europe is important to me, particularly because I enjoy travelling, I enjoy meeting as many people as possible, and the ability to do that within Europe without as many restrictions as going elsewhere is very important to me.
Izbral bom Evropo.
Ich wähle Europa.
Elijo Europa.
Izbral bom Evropo.
Jaz nazal Evropa.
devrait voter puisqu'on est tous européens, on devrait prendre nos décisions tous ensemble.
26 maja idę na wybory europejskie. Europa jest bardzo ważna, nie tylko dla mnie, ale powinna być też dla wszystkich. Jestem częścią i reprezentantem młodzieży, która powinna decydować w przyszłości o Unii Europejskiej. Nic o nas bez nas, dlatego wybieram Europę.
Ja izbiram Evropa, zato što njeziната različnost mi nudi mnogo možnosti za učenje i unapredovanje.
Zašto ja izbiram Evropa? Zaradi mnogo причин. Заради можностите што им ги нуди на младите и каде што младите можат да се дружат и да донесат одлуки за своите политики.
Y elijo Europa porque creo que solo juntos podemos conseguir un futuro mejor.
Στις 26 Μαΐου ψηφίζω στις ευρωεκλογές γιατί θέλω οι νέοι να έχουν μια φωνή στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση.
J'ai choisi l'Europe.
Elijo Europa.
Wybieram Europę.
Un dia de Europa.
Επιλέγω την Ευρώπη.
would like to thank JEF for organizing an event like this in the heart of Rome.
I tempi saranno maturi, il rilancio di un processo costituente per l'Europa e noi rischiamo di essere, insieme alla Polonia, lo Stato che manda più deputati euroscettici al Parlamento europeo.
E anche oggi contribuiremo a creare un pezzettino in più dell'Europa.
Perché questo è un momento storico in cui non possiamo soltanto fare cose belle, dobbiamo fare la cosa giusta tutti insieme.
Choose Europe!
Scelgo l'Europa per tante ragioni, perché penso che l'Europa sia il nostro futuro e come giovani abbiamo la responsabilità di costruire un futuro diverso e un'Europa diversa.
I choose Europe because there's no other option. I think the Brexit process has demonstrated that we can't go on our own. It's not going to make for a good life for our citizens in the UK or elsewhere in Europe.
Die Zukunft unseres Kontinents und unserer Europäischen Union ist mir sehr wichtig. Wir haben in den letzten Jahrzehnten unheimlich viel zusammen erreicht. Aber unsere Errungenschaften werden jetzt von manchen populistischen und rechtsradikalen Bewegungen in Frage gestellt. Deswegen dürfen wir es mit unserem Streben nach einer besseren Zukunft nicht aufhören.
Și pe 26 mai voi vota pentru Europa fără corupție, discriminare sau inegalitate. Ne vedem la vot.
Ja mä äänestän EU-vaaleissa, koska EU tarjoaa upeita koulutusmahdollisuuksia ja mahdollisuuksia tavata muita nuoria ympäri Eurooppaa ja uusista kulttuureista.
Io scelgo l'Europa.
I choose Europe. Ich wähle Europa.
Aleg Europa.
Minä valitsen Euroopan.
Europe is facing many challenges.
Climate change,
global security,
rising inequalities,
shrinking civic space,
and global migration trends.
As Federalists, we know that the answer to these challenges cannot be found only on the national level.
We need a supranational European level of governance to tackle these issues, legitimised by a European Parliament of a truly transnational character.
Our answer is more European democracy, more European civic education, more civil society engagement for Europe.
The young European Federalists strive for a more democratic, more united Europe, based on the principle of subsidiarity and the respect for human rights.
What do? International seminars, capacity building trainings, exchanges, street actions, demonstration, but not only.
We also advocate on local, regional, national and European levels and in favor of federal solutions.
We are JEF. We are active in more than 230 local sections all over Europe.
We discuss what our future, our Europe should look like.
Europe is what we make of it. From A Coruña to Lapland.
From Edinburgh to Athens.
L'Europa si festeggia ma allo stesso tempo si interroga. 60 anni di grande storia alle spalle, quindi un futuro da cominciare comunque a scrivere qui a partire da quella dichiarazione di Roma che viene firmata oggi.
Cioè il fatto che questa Europa così non può andare avanti, penso non ci siano dubbi. Vediamo lì appunto il Consiglio riunito in una giornata di celebrazione, ma il problema è...
Hi, good evening and welcome to this election night broadcast brought to you by the New Federalist and JEF Europe. My name is Madeleine Pitt, this is Paula Love, and together we are going to be hoping what we hope will be a good election night backdrop for your election parties. So as the results come through, tonight we're going to be travelling around Europe via the internet.
Thank you, Maddie, and I'll leave the floor to you to start with the first interview process.
Paolo, are you still there? I think you're maybe having some technical difficulties already, which is not ideal, but we've already had some via Sebastiano. Paolo, you're back.
I think it's working now.
Yeah, go for it.
So hello everyone, I'm Paola, the Chief Translator for the Italian section of the New Federalist, and we are happy to be hosting this interview. And Maddie will start off with a round of interviews on subjects concerning politics across Lithuania, and then we'll follow up with other countries.
Okay, so I think we can already get started. First of all, we're going to check in with Bulgaria and with Romania. So let's see if we have Radu online. Radu, can you hear us at all? Okie dokie, Radu can hear us, but we can't hear him, but perhaps he's coming on now. Hello, Georgi. Okay, let me put your microphone on. Hello, can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you, but you can hear us. So, well, I mean...
Now? Can you hear me now? Or?
Okay, awesome. We can hear you. Okay.
Perfect.
So while we're waiting for Radu to come online, let's start with you. Can you give us a quick overview of the situation in Bulgaria? What are you expecting to happen tonight?
Yeah, so the first exit polls are just through here in Bulgaria, and what we've seen until now is the leading national party JEF that is winning, and the percentage between them and the Socialist Party are between 5 and 10 according to the different sociological firms. Also, the Democratic Bulgaria has also entered the 5% margin, and the far-right nationalists VMRO have also gained one MEP from as far as we see, and DPS is the third party, the third leading party with 3 MEPs potentially, and we have to wait until tomorrow to know for sure.
Okie dokie, yeah, sounds very interesting. So,
yes.
JEF's I Choose Europe in April. I don't know if you were there in person, but the clear message from the candidates that they met there was that Bulgaria is committed to to being an EU member state. Can you tell us a little bit more? Did you see the bus tour at all coming to Bulgaria? What kind of a message do you think that gives to politicians in your country?
Can you please repeat the first part of the question, because I couldn't hear you very well?
I don't know if you saw about the JEF I Choose Europe bus tour coming through Sofia in April. What kind of message do you think that sends to politicians in your country?
Well, I don't know about what message it sent to politicians, but it sent a very clear message towards the citizens. And the message was to go vote. Sadly, the electoral activity in Bulgaria has been very low up until now. This could be, of course, because of the national holiday, the 24th of May, so that turns into 3 free days and people are not all in their cities respectively. But from what we've seen here in Bulgaria, many more youths have started to vote, have started to agitate towards voting, telling people to go out and vote, something that I personally haven't seen in the previous elections, no matter if they're being European or national. So that is a clear message that now the youth has an opinion and wants to voice its opinion towards the citizens of Europe and the Bulgarian citizens, and towards the politicians who are in Bulgaria and in the European Union.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. So aside from the focus on youth that you've been talking about, were the Schengen area and the Eurozone at all that were mentioned during the election campaign?
You've been lagging like crazy. Can you repeat, because I couldn't hear you? You're lagging.
I don't think the sound is super good. I'll go and get my hands free in a second. With the Schengen area and the Eurozone, were they themes at all in the election campaign?
I couldn't tell you with certainty because my mic is going crazy right now. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, perfect. My headset is going crazy on me. Well, no one here is speaking about the Schengen or the Euro at the moment. Everyone is being really careful regarding the European elections and what to say and what not, because many of the MEPs and many of the parties are just barely scraping through the 5% margin. So the leading party has called for a break, and then they have not officially gone out and stated anything. And the opposition party, which is the Socialists, have told media to wait until Monday when the official votes are in, because there is a lot of turmoil regarding the European elections here in Bulgaria. So no official opinion regarding the Euro or Schengen has been up until now stated from whichever of the parties.
Okay, and how do you expect turnout to be?
Sorry?
And how do you expect turnout to be?
Well, I expect that the JEF, who has all its members, most of its members in the EPP, will continue working with that European coalition when it enters the European Parliament. And regarding Schengen, we are already in the waiting list for Schengen and also for the Eurozone ERP2. So I think with the already established workforce that this party has in the European Parliament and in the Commission respectively, work will continue as scheduled before the elections. What is more interesting is how this will correlate with the new EPs from the Socialist Party and the other Democrats and the DPS, who have elected new candidates. But this is more of a national matter rather than European matter. So as far as the European front for Bulgaria, I think everything will go smoothly and on course as it has been up until now.
Okay, fascinating. And in terms of the local JEF branches, what kind of campaigning have the JEF branches in Bulgaria been up to?
Well, right now we have a debate watching party, which is actually ahead of me. You can't see it, but we've got a lot of people. Let me just turn around just so you can see. Yeah. So, yeah. she's saying hello. You can, they can't hear you because I have headsets, but you know. So yeah, and we're having the party as you see. So I don't think if you can see very well, but yeah, there's a live stream of the European Parliament electoral evening. Regarding the activities we've had, that we have been hosts of the Eurobus, which went very well despite some administrative turmoil, but everything went smoothly. We've held a seminar in November regarding the youth, fostering youth participation, which went rather well. And we've been advocating for youth elections ever since the campaign had begun to start in January.
All right, that sounds amazing. I wish I was there to celebrate you. I came to a seminar in Sofia last year, so I think there'll be some familiar faces for me at the watch party.
Yeah, there most certainly be.
This evening. Georgi, I'm going to leave you online for just a second because we're going to check in quickly with Radu and see if we can reach him as well, so we can join in. I'm not quite sure. I think he's clear, but he's not going to online. So we're going to have another go. So if you don't mind sticking with us just for 2 minutes, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay. Radu, are we having any more luck? Radu is definitely online, so it is just a question of connecting him up. We're really hoping to talk to Radu because he was the nominee for the European Press Prize and he's one of the editors-in-chief of the New Federalist. So it really would be cool if technology would be on our side this evening, even though it doesn't seem to be at the moment. Super weird. Okay. Well, perhaps we'll get him back on in a second. In the meantime, Georgi, are you still there? They're all abandoning me. This is it. We're half an hour in. We're not having a lot of luck with technology, but hoping that Georgi will be back online in just a second. Oh, sorry, I think I'm back on now. More technical issues. Joy, oh joy. What we're going to do, we're going to hopefully come back to Radu a bit later. Georgi, thank you very much for talking to us. It was really interesting to hear how the campaigns have been going in Bulgaria and enjoy the watch party going on through the night. Let's switch now to Malta. I can see Ben and Emma are keen and ready to go. So I'm going to try and get them on board. Paula, are you also there? Hello guys, can you hear us?
Hi.
Can you hear
Hi
us?
there. Sorry about the technical issues and thank you for coming on a little bit early. Hopefully we can catch up with Radu a bit later. I'm going to hand over to Paula and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thanks for joining us. Could you just briefly introduce yourselves to the whole channel, which is looking at us like briefly one sentence. So for example, Emma, can you just start with a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. Yeah, sure. My name is Emma. I am 25 years old and I am a board member on the JEF Europe board.
And Ben?
I'm the international officer from JEF Malta, one of two, and I've been involved in JEF for the past year now.
Okay, great. So currently, what is the political situation in Malta? How are the elections going? Just to get a quick overview on what is going on there.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, well, basically in Malta we have two relevant parties. The party which forms with the EPP and the other party which is with the SND. There are other parties and quite a lot of independents that were running, but unfortunately, like other elections, they didn't manage to get any results. So it's basically between the two parties. We have 6 seats, 6 MEPs, and from the estimates, actually they officially came out now.
Well, official estimates, obviously.
Official estimates, exactly. That are 4 for the Labour Party, which is SND, and 2 seats for the Partito Nazionalista, which forms part of the EPP. I don't know if you'd like to add anything.
Well, basically, with the turnout, for example, which is quite interesting to note, it's actually probably among the lowest in Malta ever. General elections usually see about 90%. It's the 60s basically. European elections, we started about 82 or 80%, something like that in 2004, and it's been gradually going lower, and at the moment it's at 72.6%. That was the turnout for yesterday. Basically, the issue with the parties in Malta at the moment, particularly the Nationalist Party with the EPP, are quite split, and it seems as though turnout was low in particular because a lot of the party faithful of the Nationalist Party did not go out. And obviously that's also led to the victory of the Labour Party.
Yeah. And what about the youth voter turnout? How is that going? The youth voter turnout, is it increasing or decreasing? How is it compared to the previous years?
Well, it's interesting to know the official, obviously, results haven't come out, but it's interesting to know that this was the first election in Malta that the vote 16 was introduced. So apart from Austria, now there is Malta as well, that 16-year-olds can go out and vote. Again, we're still waiting on the estimates to come out, but there was quite an encouragement for the youth to go out and vote.
Mm-hmm. And how is the political climate in Malta right now? So is it split like it is currently in Italy, or are the parties a bit more harmonious? So what is the climate like?
It's a bit of a, basically, both of the parties, until recently, I would say, were quite centrist. It looks as though the Nationalist Party, though, they're moving a bit further right, essentially because the Labour Party has become much more of a catch-all party. So the Nationalist Party has nowhere to go but right. In fact, the Nationalist Party kind of, and their leader, framed this this election as a referendum on abortion law in Malta. So it's been quite a divisive campaign, I would say. And as I said before, the Nationalist Party itself is quite split at the moment. And that has led to a lower turnout among their party faithful, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And to add, the latest estimates that came out show that the Labour Party got 55.8%, if I'm not mistaken, and the Nationalist Party got 36 36 or 38%.
Yeah,
so there, as you can see, there's quite a big gap between the majority, the estimates.
And how is it compared to the previous elections, the overall estimate, let's say?
In general, the past European elections have always been won by the Labour Party. And in 2004, they got 3 seats, while the Nationalist Party got 2. 2009, we increased to 6 seats, and it was split 4 for Labour, 2 for the Nationalists. The last election was 3-3, and now it's back to 4-2, basically, for the Labour Party. But throughout, the Labour Party has always won MEP elections, with I think it's been over about 53% every time, 53 and then 40% for the Nationalists, for example.
And how is the Green Party going? I read right now that it's the estimates are very low. It's around 2%, if I read correctly. So was that expected, or was it expected?
Yes, unfortunately, the Green Party has never really gotten any significant voting in their favor at all, and this election was no different. The closest that the Green Party got to get any seats whatsoever, both in the national elections and the MEP elections, was in 2004, where a candidate was rather close, but still. Malta has always been a dual-party system. In the parliament, it's always been the Labour Party and the Nationalist Party. The reason why in this legislature there is a third party, which is the Liberal Party, is only because that they were in coalition with the Nationalist Party. So, for all intents and purposes, the Conservatives and Christian Democrats, in order to gain more seats in Parliament. But it's a very polarized country, which is one of the problems of politics in Malta, actually.
And Maddie, would you like to ask a couple of questions as well?
No. I just wanted to say thank you guys for joining. Don't worry, no more questions from me. I think Paola has done a wonderful job. It's really, really interesting to hear what the situation is like over in Malta. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us. We're unfortunately going to have to leave you now and head over to Latvia and Lithuania to our colleagues there. So we'll say bye-bye to you guys and enjoy the elections night party if you're having one over in Malta. Thank you for joining, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so let's see if we can get Federalist online. And we're also going to try and talk to Ravis from Latvia. So let's see if technology will be favorable to us this time. Past experience is suggesting perhaps not. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm trying to invite you online. Oh, I think we have Federalist. This is a good start. And now we will try and get Ravis from Latvia to join us as well. Hello there. Can you hear me at all? You can hear me. Okay, we can't quite hear you, so let's hope that that changes. Can you perhaps try and switch your microphone on? It should be able to switch it on. Though, of course, that is not happening. You may have to communicate by writing on a piece of paper.
You hear me?
Oh, there we go. That sounds much more promising. Okay, we can definitely hear you. Hello there.
Hello, hello.
Wonderful. Okay, let's see if we can get Revis to join us, and otherwise we can get started chatting to you about the situation in Lithuania.
Okay.
It would be cool if we could have a panel discussion. In the meantime, enjoy your wine.
Thank you. I am candidate for elections, and I am in my party watching the elections.
Okay, in
We
that
have
case,
two
I would say
elections.
you definitely earned a drink. It must have been a busy time for you. Okay, I can't get Revis to join, so let's start with you in that case. Can you give us a quick situation, a quick summary of the situation maybe in Lithuania with regards to the European elections and how you think it's going to turn out?
Really, the situation in Lithuania is very standard. We have mostly parties, the traditional parties, the Conservatives, Homeland Union. We have Greens and Peasants Party, who is part of Greens. I'm part of Liberal Party, the ALDE. And we have election committees where people are joining election committees if they don't want to choose the party. Really, this is a primary result, really, because it's about midnight in Lithuanian time or 23:00 in Central European time. But primary result gives us that EPP with Homeland Union will be the most victorious with about 4 seats in European Parliament. And Greens will have about 2-3, and Liberals with my party and either we have 1 or maximum 2 seats.
Okay, very interesting. And I think we now have Revis online, so maybe we can have a little comparison with the situation in Latvia. So Revis, over to you, same question. Can you give us a quick summary of what the situation is in Latvia at the moment?
Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you, which is great.
Okay, so currently 35%, as we know by the alleged data, 35% of people have voted in the elections, and they have told us the predictions for which candidates will be in the parliament from Latvia. We have 8 spots for the European Parliament, and now we know that Social Democrats will be there. They are in the People's Party. We will have 2 representatives also probably in the European Social Democrat, European People's Party, and 2 candidates in the European, in the Greens. Yes, and then 2 other candidates are still sort of shaky and unknown.
Okay, well, we'll see how the results turn out a little bit later tonight. So Latvia is well known for its large Russian-speaking minority, and obviously the topic of Russia has been discussed a lot in this election campaign. How do you see this debate in Latvia surrounding Russia and its role with the European Union today?
Certainly the Russian minority has impacted a lot the European Parliament elections as well. And currently one party that is also predicted to be in the European Parliament is the Latvian Russian Unity Party. So that is, they are also representing the Latvian Russian minority. And it has been a very topical question, the minority issues in general, along with social issues, which have been for all parties. They have all raised this question and told that this is a priority. So this year, it's more not, in the elections, we see that it's not so much about the ideological parts, but about how popular the party is. For example, we have one party, which is Vienotība, like unity in English, that had 4 spots out of 8 for the previous parliament. So this time they also will probably get 2 spots, only because they marketed on the experience. So this is a large part for the elections in general, the marketing part. Because on the debates, the people who listen to the debates are mostly those that are involved in politics or older generations that have time for watching debates, because youngsters, these like in Latvia, don't really pay attention to that.
Okay, that's something we can maybe compare the situation in Lithuania, Federalist. So for you, how do you see youth participation and youth engagement within politics? Is it the same as Latvia, or is it a little different? Are they more engaged?
Really, in Lithuania, we have participation in elections about 50%, 51%, because we have elections and mostly usual. So I think this election will be mostly the 30%. Yes, mostly we have candidate English media who talks a lot about youth problems, and a lot of young people support her. So I think we will see tomorrow what participation will be. Yeah.
The connection's a little bit in and out, but I think I got most of it. I have a question for both of you. So in terms of the Spitzenkandidaten process, the Spitzenkandidaten we've seen are mostly from Western European countries, and so there's maybe less representation from smaller countries. Do you guys see that as being a problem?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear.
Yes, of course. Sorry, yeah, I apologize. The connection is maybe not ideal. In terms of the Spitzenkandidaten process, the leading candidate process, most of the nominees we've seen have been from Western European countries, and so the smaller nations are maybe less represented. Or do you see that as being a problem?
Yes, I think it's a problem. We have ALDE has Spitzenkandidaten from Slovenia. That's nice, but I think the problem is that most Spitzenkandidaten are from bigger European countries like France or Germany, like Mr. Weber. I think in the future we must think about mechanisms to get a more representation for smaller countries like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, to have candidates from these countries to participate beside bigger countries. Yes, we have like Guy Verhofstadt in ALDE who represents Belgium, but I think the newer members, the more pro-European members, because in Lithuania it's about 80% popularity of the EU and pro-EU. So I think next elections we must think mechanisms to make smaller countries more represented in Spitzenkandidaten.
Fascinating. And would you agree with that, Ravis?
I would say that the European Parliament is one part of the decision-making process, but we also have to pay attention to the European Union Council, where ministers from each country go and represent their countries. So, of course, it's worse for us that we have fewer votes in the European Parliament, but ultimately we still have the same opportunity to get our opinions into the agenda. And we also have the European Union Council where we represent ourselves. So it's just fair in the European Union level. It's not like, maybe it's not that good for our national governments, but it's fair in the big, picture.
In the big scheme of things, yeah, absolutely. Okay, and maybe last question for you both. How have you seen your JEF branches during the election campaigns? What have they been up to?
Really, in Lithuania, we have a problem. We have a small branch because in Lithuania, federalism of European Union is not so popular, not so known in public. But we are working on it. Really, we have candidates like me and Martynas Negevičius in my party list who signed the pledge. We have Petras Auštrevičius, who is ex-president of UEF Lithuania branch. So I think little by little we are explaining to Lithuanian public federalism, what it is, what is the cons and pros, and the next election will be getting more stronger and participate more and make election more about what Europe we want, more federal or confederal. But how I say, we need to work, we need to do a lot of things, we need a supporters team, but optimism is high, so we choose Europe and we choose federation.
Thank you for this very JEF response to the question. Would you agree with that, Ravis? How has the JEF campaigning been in Latvia?
We have done events from our organization because in Latvia, as we have a different situation than in other countries, we are doing the JEF as a part of our everyday life, and we are doing those campaigns separately. But for now, pre-election, we have organized events for youngsters. We had a European Parliament simulation game to get youngsters into to let them more acquainted with everyday political life of European Union. And then we have similar events happening afterwards. We had a discussion with the politicians that were candidates for the European Parliament elections this week on Monday. And that was a quite popular event as well, with a live stream as well. And then we have already made a strategy for creating in the future a separate public accounts for JEF Latvia. So we will go out with more bigger marketing schemes and trying to get Latvians into the federalist ideals.
Okay, well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Guys, it's been really a pleasure to talk to you. Fascinating to hear the kind of things your JEF branches have been up to in your countries, and also what the political situation seems like. So a huge thank you for joining us. We're going to let you get on. Carolis, you can finish your glass of wine and enjoy the rest of the election night party. And Ravis, thank you for joining us as well. We are going to have another attempt at joining Radu to this call. Radu, who is the other editor-in-chief with USO of the New Federalist. So hoping that technology is on our side this time. Fingers crossed, and let's give it a go.
Can you hear me?
Radu, can you hear us at all? I can hear a gigantic echo in the call, but that's about it. Yes, I think we might be. I can see a floor or maybe a ceiling.
Floor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Thank God.
Yes, we can hear you. Fantastic.
Okay.
We can see you. Yes, it's quite dark, but I can definitely recognize that it's you.
Yes. Okay.
And there is a gigantic echo, so I apologize for that. It's really quite weird. Anyway, Radu, can you give us a quick update of how the situation is looking in Romania as regards to these elections?
Okay, so in Romania we've had a bit of a strange situation because we had a referendum at the same time on the rule of law. So it's quite unusual to have this high of attendance in Romania for this kind of voting. So it was almost 50%. What's wrong with the audio? Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes, we can hear you again. Sorry. Do you think the fact of having a referendum at the same time increased participation?
Yes, definitely. It definitely did, about 10% or so, I would say. But people were really willing to vote, especially young people, which is very, very different this time around in Romania. And they were willing to vote, especially as a form of contestation to the ruling Social Democrats and their allies. And we started.
How has youth participation been in general?
Well, in general, even now was pretty low. The dominant age group in this voting was between 55 and 64 by far. But when we count back in different elections, youth participation is a bit up. So that's something encouraging to look at.
Okay, interesting. And what is the dominant party that you would think might come out on top in the European elections?
There is no dominant party. We only have an exit poll right now, and it's giving the two mainstream parties at 23%, 24%, both of them neck and neck, and a new upcoming party at like 20, 22%, 23%. So pretty even. No dominant party. But it's a clear message to the ruling party because they dropped down from 45% to 23%, even lower. So that's a clear message to them.
That's quite a big difference, effectively.
Yeah.
Switching topics slightly now, I think congratulations are in order because you were nominated for the European Press Prize, and only a couple of weeks ago you were in Warsaw for the ceremony. How did it feel to be nominated, and maybe you can talk about what took you there in terms of the nomination?
Well, when I got the nomination, it was a bit unreal. Like, okay, I was reading the titles of the article and the nominees and the respective newspapers from where they all came from, but I didn't really register that I was one of them. But when I got there, so okay, I was a tourist in Warsaw for a day, but then I got to the ceremony. I was really humbled, to be honest. Like those were like the top journalists that Europe has to offer, from The Guardian, from the best German newspapers, from The Correspondent in Netherlands, for example. And I got the chance to meet some of them. One of them that I spent like a bit more time talking to was a war correspondent from an Italian newspaper, from La Repubblica, and she was just coming back from Gaza, and she told me all about her reporting there, and I felt like I was so out of place because I don't really register myself as a journalist yet, anyway. But I was really humbled and honored.
There's still time.
Yeah. So
fascinating, yeah, because the winner of the prize was eventually a German from The Guardian. I think we're all very proud at the New Federalist to see that our journalists are competing against professional journalists from The Guardian.
Yeah. It was an honor, really, like just to be there, just to meet these people.
Yeah. And in terms of the article you wrote, you use Article 7 against your country. You've been very vocal critic of suspicions of corruption in Romania. How has that been impacted on the debates surrounding these election campaigns?
It has been a huge topic in Romania, actually. Okay, so national topics dominated, mainly corruption, but one of the criticism that was used against the governing party, against PSD, was the fact that they were isolated in Europe and that they were banned from joining the conference that Social Democrats of Europe had. They were not invited. So that was a big no to them when it came to Europe. So that's something that people and voters probably registered. And in terms of my article, I think I was like a bit of a foreteller like a Cassandra, because there are more and more signs that if this infringement of rule of law continues, Romania will just go down the path of Hungary and Poland with very much ease. And Franz Timmermans said as much, and he's a social democrat. He's supposed to be an ally of the governing party, but even he has distanced himself from them. So it's been a huge topic when it comes to national politics, but impacted by European elections and European discussions. Yeah.
Okay, we will say thank you very much, Eddie, for joining us. We're going to switch over right now. I'm going to hand over back to Paula. So thank you so much for joining us, Eddie. It was really, really cool to hear about your award ceremony. Obviously, we all had our fingers crossed for you at the award ceremony in Warsaw. I think you'd have loved to have seen a new Federalist victory over the Guardian, but I guess the Guardian is okay with us, and we'll take it. Thank you very much for joining us, and Paula, I'm going to hand over back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, so hello again, everyone. Celine, can we have you online? Celine, not Severine yet. She should be online in a couple of seconds, I think. Not yet. I think she should be online in a couple of seconds. Let me see. Technology is great as always. And Sabine is typing something, so she should be online unless we have technological problems. Severine, Severine. Oh, there we go, Sabine. Okay, great. I can't hear you there. Can you talk? Can you hear me? We can't hear you yet. I don't think we can hear you yet. Maybe the computer. No. We can Severine. Celine, I can't hear you. That technology, as usual, betrays us. I can see your mouth, but I can't hear you yet. And there's Severine on, but we should have been at 22:30. Wait. I can hear a buzzing sound, but nothing else in the meanwhile. And as usual, technology. Still no sound for Sabine. Well, maybe. Oh, we heard something, and then we didn't anymore. Now it's just me. All right then. Oh yes, I can hear you, Celine. Hello. How are you, Celine? There are also a couple of people who are trying to get online, but they were at 22:30, so there was this like misunderstanding with that. So, Celine, if you could briefly introduce yourself. You are an executive board member at the Young European Federalist, if I understood correctly. So, what's your background, very briefly, just overall?
So I'm a member of the organization for 8 years now. I started in the south of France, in Grenoble. Then I become vice president in international office of JEF France, and right now I'm executive board member of JEF Europe since 2 years.
Oh, okay, great. And you're currently involved a lot in civil society, so you're going to be talking about the role of civil society in this brief interview. So generally speaking, what do you think the current role of civil society throughout the European elections is?
I think every 5 years is really important moment for civil society, especially for European NGO, but also for a lot of different NGOs. As JEF, we can totally see that there is a peak of activity every 5 years, a lot of action, a lot of campaign, and a lot of recruitment of members as well. And this year, I think we can see that the civil society was really active, especially on environmental issues, but also in a lot of different topics. For instance, we saw some organization promoting Esperanto. So I think it's a great window of opportunity for all NGOs in Europe to claim their voice because of the transnational aspect of the European election, at least from an NGO point of view. However, I think it's a bit paradoxical also for European organization because as JEF, for instance, when we campaign at the national level for national election, we can just push our European topic and a European ID like for Europe, even in a national context. However, when there is a European election, we see that we also have to take care of the turnout, which is something that normally doesn't happen at the national level. It's a fact that the turnout of young people is quite low and need to increase. So even though we could say that it's not really our job as pro-European NGO, because we have ideas, rather that our main goal is not to increase turnout in Europe, we still take this responsibility. And that I think is the main difference for us for the European election. Of course, so it means that we have a mix of pushing for ideas. That's why we developed, for instance, a European manifesto as JEF, but we also partner with European institutions as European Parliament to increase the turnout. In overall, I will say that we're promoting the European election as such. They're saying that is important and we need to have a word to say as young people, but also that we need a change for Europe.
Great. And could you provide us maybe with a concrete example or a recent example of an initiative which you participated in as a very active member of civil society?
Yes, I have quite a good recent example. I will say the first one for sure is a bus tour that we organized as JEF Europe. We've been in 50 countries for 3 weeks, meeting a lot of young people, organizing street action, debates, and this is a really good example because it just combined what I said about promoting the European election on one side, but also claiming that we want to change and want a better Europe. So all this activity of meeting people, organizing debates, was a good way to show that the European elections are important and we need to be together in that and not only have national election in national country on national issue, but we need to build this European feeling all across the continent for the European election. But as I mentioned, we also partner with the campaign This Time I'm Voting for the European Parliament, and we use our tools and some of the social media. But we also stay really focused on our political message. So that's why we had the manifesto and we also had the pledge for the European candidate. What we had like, I think, 200 candidates who signed them. So we really combined this for the European election to embrace all the face of the organization and how the message could be.
Perfect. And how do you think, in general, civil society could become more attracted to the idea of the EU? So we have a lot of initiatives with the youth and the European youth nowadays, but how do you think society in general, so even people who are older than 20, older than 30, could become interested in voting throughout the European elections?
I think it's a bit the $1 million question, which every NGO would like to have the perfect answer for it. But from my point of view, I will say that the main problem is the lack of knowledge by the European Union. What is important, what you need to go to vote, what does that matter? And I think nowadays we have really good window of opportunity. For many months already, we saw all this March for Europe with young people demonstrating. And of course, if you take the topic of environment, is really linked to the European topic and federalism, because environment doesn't stop at the border of one country. So I think we should go more and more in that direction and pick concrete topic of people that they can identify with, and like show them that how concretely Europe has an impact in their life. And that is, we should move forward with that. Of course, another really important aspect is education, because people can only realize and understand the European Union if they are educated for it. And that's why at JEF with the program Europe at School, I think is really good basic to give people some input of why European Union is important and how does it work. And only when they will have this consciousness of what the European Union is, we could build on it and like move further on embracing the European Union.
Yes, and there was a lot of disinformation and fake news throughout the European campaign, so knowledge and education plays a huge role in it, I suppose. And that was great with regards to what civil society is doing throughout the elections, and any particular initiatives or ideas as to how civil society could contribute to the EU after the actual election.
Yeah, I think for sure the fight of the civil society and as JEF doesn't end after of the European election. I will say that on the contrary, the fight is starting after the European election when we will have a clear view of what's going to happen for the next 5 years, at least in terms of political fragmentation or not. I think it's really important because we need to continue to work on that. Otherwise, in 10 years, maybe the European Parliament will be full of Eurosceptics, and then we're going to lose the battle. So I think the role of the civil society after the election is even more important than before, I will say. And for us, on one side will be to use the dynamic that the European election bring. Of course, in terms of volunteer, we have so many amazing volunteers across Europe who work for months for the European election. But also internally, especially as JEF Europe, all the partnerships we build. We build many partnerships with NGOs that we were not used to work with. So I think our work will be to continue to have like a resilient partnership for the next 5 years. And of course, once the parliament will be elected, our role also is to make sure that they are accountable. We have this pledge, so now we have to make sure that they respect what they signed for. In overall, I would say that we really need to start a change. Like the status quo is over, and we will be an important part of this fight. And this fight starts actually already at the beginning of July, 1st and 2nd in Strasbourg for the first plenary session of the parliament. We will be there with UEF to have like debate, demonstration to start that this new era was starting, and it will be good.
And we end on a very hopeful message. So thank you so much, Celine, for taking the time of being here and giving us all this great information on civil society. So thank you for being here, Celine.
Thank you very much.
And we will go on to Maddie in a couple of seconds, who's going to focus on a watch party in Paris. So thank you again, Celine. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much for that. Stay online 1 second. Help me get the watch party online.
Sure.
The break gave me time to get some more coffee, so that can only be a good thing.
The watch party. As always, technology is the best.
Watch party in Paris. Are you there? Probably not.
They're not.
Let's get them on. Elena, can you hear us? I didn't think so, but perhaps we'll get them on in a second.
I think maybe Alexander Sapsky should be us.
Excellent.
So Alexander, if you can log in, that would be great. More or less.
We definitely know the sound is working.
At least we know something.
There we go. Hello, Alexander.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm sorry the sound appears to be a little dodgy. But so Alexander, you're from Europe Elects, if I've understood correctly?
Yes.
Okay. For those of us who don't know so much about what you do, I'm a loyal Facebook follower, but apart from that, can you tell us a bit how you came to be a part of Europe Elects and what work you've been doing during the election campaigns?
So I was a loyal follower up until a couple years ago when Tobias, the guy who'd been running the Europe Elects account on Twitter and Facebook for about 3 years on his own, decided that it was a lot of work for one person to keep this all up. So he put together a team from all around Europe. I ended up involved in this, answering the call on Twitter. And from there, having put together a group of people from pretty much every European country, we started expanding Europe Elects Out. We now have channels on YouTube. We have a website that has, especially in the last few days, gotten enormously popular.
I can imagine it's very timely for you.
Yeah, it's been quite the year.
Really good. So how big is your team at the moment?
At the moment, we're a team of 40 volunteers from every single European country and representing at least one member from every European Parliament group.
Okay, wow. So quite representative then in that case. During the election campaigns, what has been the core aim of your organization?
So we've tried to approach the elections from 2 angles. The first was to give a European perspective on national politics. So we do this especially in the way we label parties, which has slowly become standard across many other channels too, which is after the simple party abbreviation, we will add their European Parliament group. And when representing the country, parties will be grouped by their European Parliament group. That works fine in places like Italy, where you really only have one party per group, but in other countries it may get you may be grouping together parties. But the point is trying to group together parties from the same parties with the same European goals, and that represent the same policies. Number 2, our goal has obviously been trying to improve our projections. So we, aside from just collecting polls, we make a projection for the election. We have made a projection for the election, and what is unique about ours compared to others you will see online is that it uses the local electoral law from every country. We are able to do this both simply through research in the country and thanks to the fact that we have representatives in every country that will help us out with small party changes that we'll see, which may make a difference of 1 or 2 seats, but over 28 countries that adds up. And simply the fact that different countries have considerably different electoral laws, even if they're all proportional.
Okay, and what is the importance of such accurate polling? So it seems to me that you're trying to improve on the national polls by using European-wide data. In which case, how important is it to have these very accurate polls for voters, for politicians? How important is it?
It is quite important, in part because politicians base their decisions entirely, or base their decisions in large part on polling data. And in part simply because for voters, it's both important for them to see the way trends are going in their own countries, and often they'll be able to see that, at least in larger countries, from local media. But it's also important for them, especially in the European election, to see what the political situation is in other countries that will be making decisions alongside them in the European Parliament. It is also very helpful to collect data and information for countries that do not have as large a media presence as, say, Italy or Germany, and be able to accurately represent this data.
Okay, fascinating. And are you pleased with the way it's gone? You must have been very busy, but generally, has it been a good campaign? And will you be satisfied with the results?
It has been an excellent campaign trying to predict this election. It's been the fact that our website was entirely crashed, and what our web host told us was the first time in their own history. So that was earlier this afternoon. We finally fixed that, but it's been a lot of fun there. Adding to that, so far it's looking like, based on exit polls, our projection seems to be fairly accurate. You have variations in individual countries based on turnout data based on possibly older polls or inaccurate polls, but on average, our projection seems to have been very accurate.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much, Alexander, for coming on to tell us about your work. Really fascinating to hear this really unique take on polling, and interesting to see that, you know, a poll isn't always a poll. There's massive differences between them, and it's been really interesting hearing about your unique strategy. But thanks for your time, and hopefully you'll have a nice rest of the evening checking out how accurate your polling's been. No pressure.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we're going to switch over now to a watch party in Paris, and I can see one familiar face waiting for me across there. Guys, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, you can hear me. Wonderful. Okay.
Can you speak closer to the mic or whichever thing you're using?
Yes, certainly. Is this any better?
Now we hear, but from the distance.
Is this any better?
Okay.
No, it's not enough.
Okay. So you're at a watch party in Paris, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ophélie, we spoke to you earlier. Hello, Hervé. I saw you a few months ago in Paris. It was nice to see you again virtually. What is the atmosphere over there in Paris?
I think we can say that, as I was saying earlier, that it's a bit more cheerful than what we could have expected, because when you look at the projections, it looks like the Rassemblement National is not that high. I mean, it's still the first party, but we were expecting that. And as for the rest, it's more balanced than what we were expecting. So the atmosphere is quite good at the moment.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. So it's a Sunday night, and you're gathered around watching elections results. This is politics and not football. Is it quite a niche crowd that you're joined with?
I don't really hear the question, but maybe I can comment also on the results, and maybe also about the young vote here in France, because we have now the turnout also for young voters. So something like 40% of young people here in France vote for the European election. It's clearly better than in 2014. Really, it's 15% more than the last European election, and it's really important also to point out these votes. And for the young voters, the first party is the Ecologist Party here in France, so Europe Écologie Les Verts, the Greens. And it's also a good news to see, because in the polls, the young voters push for the Rassemblement National, and then we see for these results, we have not the Rassemblement National at the top level in the young votes, and it's quite also positive to see this change.
It's great to hear that the turnout among young people is higher than we thought it was going to be. What kind of things have you been doing with JEF France to appeal to young people and try to get them to engage?
Okay, so in France we have a campaign named Mon Europe, and we organize a lot of Europe at School interventions, also for young voters, to explain what is the European Union, how to vote, also understand the issues of the European elections, and it's a really important activity here in France. And we have also other kind of actions for this European election, a lot of demonstration in some cities in France, a lot of flyers and so on. And we also have a campaign with really short sentences from some MEPs, and we want also to show these short words and try to encourage the people to react and vote for their MEPs here in France, and to stop also some nationalist or xenophobic MEPs or candidates. And
Okay.
also one of the activity of our campaign Movement in Europe.
You've been very busy in that case, I think it sounds like. And what do you have planned for the rest of your watch party? Who is there and what are you up to?
So it's actually an evening that we co-organized. So the Young Europeans, JEF France, of course, UEF France, but also like the European Movement France, together with the French office of the representation of the European Parliament, which is why you might have seen all those pretty buildings that we're in. This is the location of the Parliament office representation here in France. And so we invited also journalists, some candidates, people from the civil society. So really trying to have a big civil society gathering to analyze the results in the European way, because we know that the French media, and I mean, we see it because we have a TV actually that is in the corridor. Well, they analyze it from a very French perspective, and that's not what we want, because that's not what is right. What is right is to take a look at how other European countries have voted as well, to understand how the next European Parliament is going to look like.
That's fascinating. So it's kind of also an attempt to represent France as being part of the EU as well, and looking at the wider picture, not just the results in France.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, I'm really sorry. I think that's what we have time for, because I'm going to move back on to Paula now and talk about the role of civil society. But thank you very, very much for joining us, and I wish you a lovely evening. I'm glad there's been some positive results your end, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonne soirée. Okay, Paula, are you back online? Can I hand back over to you? Fantastic.
Great. So if Elena, Anna, and Vladislav could join. I think Vladislav is a 15%, and yeah, Severin. Vladislav has a 15% battery charge. Hello.
Hello.
Can you see
so Anna and great. Hi. Hello, Anna and Vladislav. Maybe. If his phone, yeah. Unless Vladislav's phone dies in the meanwhile, tragically dies. I don't know. We can start out, and Vladislav can join as soon as he finds a charger. So we can start with Elena. Thank you so much for being here. And basically what we're going to do is, I'm going to ask a question to one of you, and then another question to another one, seeing as there are so many of us here. So Elena is studying business administration and management at CEST Europe after having finished her internship at the European Court of Justice. And she's very interested in youth voter turnout, so that's what she's going to be talking about. So Elena, why is it important to vote in your opinion? And how can our votes change the direction of the EU? Oh, we can hear you. Okay. Can you try talking?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So, in my opinion, the European elections don't really get the protagonism they deserve. Most of my friends don't really know what the European parties are and how the European Parliament really affects their lives. And I think really the lack of visibility is due to the absence of European politics. In a way, we don't really see European politicians on TV that much. And there's not really a common space, European public space of communication and information. And I think this lack of visibility has really caused many to lose interest and lose affection towards the EU and its politics. It really seems far and inaccessible to the European citizens.
Yes, of course, and that includes the youth as well, I guess. So we also have Severin here, Severin Rapp, and he's a policy research officer at the European Student Think Tank. So Severin, what do you think are the key issues affecting today's youth?
Hi, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I think one of the biggest issues for youth is employment and youth employment. That's on one hand my personal experience and what I sort of experienced from my environment, from my work in youth organizations, but also that's sort of a finding, one of the big findings of a Eurobarometer survey the European Commission conducted recently in 2017, where they found out that what actually concerns youth most, or what young people think should be one of the top priorities of the European Union is employment.
Yes, so that's one of the top priorities which the youth is concerned with. So it's a problematic which hopefully will be solved, but it's very difficult to solve. So we'll just go on to Anna. Anna is a young European ambassador for EU Neighbours, which is an international organization focusing on the Eastern Partnership. And Anna, if I understood correctly, you're German. So what is German politics like nowadays, and what is the situation of the youth in Germany?
I think there is, like, in my opinion, kind of a focus on older generation of politics. So I think that is a great problem for the youth vote turnout, because I often don't feel addressed by the dominant party. So there's a lot of talk about pensions, and then, for example, obviously that is a very important topic. However, sometimes I feel like, why don't we talk about other topics? Like, for example, now with the Fridays for Future, I feel like that really gave a big push to a topic that concerns really all of us, which is really an intergeneration topic as well. And actually, you can see right now that the turnout and the votes for the Green Party are through the roof, which I think is probably in part due to the fact that there are a lot of young people turn out and vote for them now. So I think that's like a dominant issue in German politics, but also in European politics in general, that there's kind of a vicious circle between like not enough youth topics and then abstention, and then even fewer youth topics, more abstention. And yeah, I mean, we've seen what happened with Brexit, where young people didn't turn out to vote. So I really wish more young people would turn out to vote, and there would be more youth topics.
Great. And based on that, Elena, how do you think the EU could create more voter awareness?
I think the best way to increase voter awareness is to increase communication. I think there's not enough communication from the European Parliament and the European Union as a whole, especially that my generation is very connected to social media and very demanding of more transparency and communication. But I also think that the European Union has made efforts in that direction, because we've seen a lot of posts on social media and Facebook and on Instagram to increase youth participation in these elections. And even it has launched a lot of initiatives and platforms so that European citizens can express their concerns or launch any project that they seem important. And I think this can be seen with the rate of participation that has been way higher these elections, especially regarding the youth.
Great. And Severin, since we're talking about youth, do you think enough is being done to counter youth unemployment across Europe? And is there any particular action which you would like to see the EU take to diminish youth unemployment?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things being done, especially since sort of the financial and economic crisis, where awareness for this issue has risen, as has youth unemployment in that period. One of the big things the European Commission did is to put the youth guarantee into force, which is sort of the idea to give every young person that becomes unemployed a training place or sort of an employment within 4 months after becoming unemployed. I think there's still some, they're big actually implementation problems because as you know, sort of these labor market social policy things are often the competence of the member states. And that's why implementation varies, and that's why also the effectiveness of the policy measure varies to a great extent. And I think the other part of the problem is that the youth guarantee very much builds on apprenticeship systems, on work-based learning, and that kind of sort of systematic sort of intervention, if you like. And I feel that we should give more thought to what actually happens if we run into a crisis or an economic downturn. What happens with these training systems? Because I think, as we saw in some countries, is that during crises, sort of firms are less likely or less willing to supply actually training places. So I think we would have to think more of that in the future, and I think that's part of my criticism with the youth guarantee. And I think the other big step the European Union took was to tackle sort of non-standard forms of employment, because I think employment, also, we always kind of focus on the youth unemployment rate, which is obviously very important figure. But I think in recent years, what has become very salient is that more and more young people are actually working in non-standard forms of employment. That means like part-time jobs or other forms of sort of gig economy style sort of jobs. And I think we have to really work on that. And the European Union does that by sort of taking particular forms of work and trying to equalize the conditions they have there with sort of standard employment. And the problem with that is that, you know, you can't really cover everything. You can't really capture the diversity of sort of non-standard employment with these kind of interventions. There's like a couple of other issues which go along with that. As you asked for one single measure which we could take, I think that's really tricky because, you know, on the one hand, it's like a matter of competences, so who can actually say what. And I think on the other hand, the problem is that, you know, labor markets in the EU work so much so different, like there's a huge diversity. So there's, I think, not really a one-size-fits-all solution. But I do think we could, in the future, like, you know, question some sort of basic assumptions we have behind certain policies. So I think, for instance, that sort of dogmatic that actually, you know, work-based learning and apprenticeships are the way forward. I think we should question that, or maybe that, you know, sort of these non-standard forms of employment, labor market transitions. And I think if we rethink that, and if the European Union would do that in the future, that would be very beneficial.
That's a very interesting initiative. And Anna, on a positive point, did you celebrate Europe Day? And can you briefly describe us what Europe Day is for our viewers who maybe are not familiar with it? And if you did celebrate Europe Day, how did you do it?
Well, now, to be honest, for me, like, every day is Europe Day. I know that sounds really cheesy, but like what I do, like for my career and for my studies, is related to Europe. Like my personal life is related to Europe. I have friends from all over Europe. So it's not like, for me, it doesn't stand out that much. However, I did do something for it. I went with this time I'm voting campaign. We went to a university and we had an information stall and talked to a couple of students there, and also to some older ladies from Pulse of Europe who were also there. And that was really nice because it was like an intergenerational thing, and yeah, we had really good discussions actually.
Mm-hmm. So that's certainly a good initiative which the EU has proposed to increase the interest in Europe. And Elena, what do you think the main challenges of these elections were from a political and social point of view? Not only in your country, seeing that you live in different countries, if I understood correctly, but generally across Europe.
All right, so I think the main challenge of these elections was the rise of anti-European parties. There are many possibilities of coalition between anti-European parties. The first one would be a coalition between far-right parties that would gather Rassemblement National in France, Vox in Spain, and many other nationalist parties. But another possibility would be that the far right, far left, and Eurosceptic parties would make a coalition, and that gathering would mean 1/3 of the parliament seats, which is very big. And actually, I think this is the fear of this possibility becoming a reality is what increased participation all across Europe. Even though we can see that in France, Rassemblement National is winning currently. And I think another big challenge of these elections was youth mobilization. I think it was a big challenge for every party in every country to actually understand and respond to the youth needs and concerns. We're a generation that is very way more sensible to issues such as climate change than any generation before, and I think that was also a big challenge of these elections to get the youth mobilization.
Mm-hmm, of course. And going on back to youth unemployment, which focuses on youth, and is one of the biggest challenges which youth is facing. Severine, how do you think? Oh, okay, you're still here. Severine, how do you think the new College of Commissioners could be able to counter youth unemployment successfully?
I think I didn't properly understand the question because there's a thing going on my screen.
Yes, and mine as well. I think one of the main hopes is having fun in trying to organize the mechanisms. Vladislav is trying to log in, but he can't. So I think they're trying to sort that out. But can you still hear me?
Yeah, so I think the question was about what the new College of Commissioners should do, or
yes, to counter youth unemployment successfully. If you have any ideas on what they could do.
So I think one avenue worth being explored would be to, involve stakeholders and sort of stakeholders of the labor market coordination process better into labor market issues, and especially into youth labor market issues. And that would, I think, mainly refer to trade unions, because that's what we've seen in recent decades is sort of a decline in trade unions, which has for membership and bargaining power and that sort of thing, which has, I think, many different routes, of which some lie definitely within the trade unions. But there's also, I think, a certain level of hostility which trade unions experience sort of on the international arena. And I think if we sort of manage to include trade unions, and especially young people within trade unions in the future, into policymaking on a more serious level, I think that would be very helpful. And that could also, help sort of fixing labor market insecurity for young people.
And a fun question for Anna and Elena. Did you convince anyone? Did you successfully convince anyone to go vote today? Anyone who didn't want to vote? For example, in my university, no, some students weren't very interested in voting, so we all went there together, like we went in a collective trip to go cast our vote. So did you two convince anyone to go vote?
Well, yes. Actually, yes, my twin brother is not really into politics. He's more the engineer type of guy that that cares about math and not really about politics. But so I really shared the importance of voting with him, and we went together to vote. So he fulfilled his civic duty, which is very important.
Of course, good initiative. And Anna, did you?
Well, I mean, yeah, I spent the past couple of months basically talking to people, going like, yes, so what are you doing on the 26th? Like, are you going to vote? Have you voted already? So that's the same thing I also did with my family and my friends, and I've been pestering them quite a bit. So I think they all went. I made sure that they did.
So you managed to do that. And Severin, did you manage to or convince anyone to vote, engage in debates, argue with anyone on Facebook, anything fun?
Yeah, I did, because I am currently living in the UK.
Oh,
and here the situation is kind of different, I think, than like in other countries, because also the elections have in general not been like a big thing. I feel it has rather, politics and public administration has like tried to keep it like on a low level and not make it too salient. There's also like hardly any advertisements around here. But within my colleagues and sort of my study groups and stuff, obviously we're talking a lot about that. But also I'm kind of living in a bubble a little bit, I think.
At the moment, due to exam period, I presume.
Excuse me?
Due to exam period, you're living in a bubble at the moment, I presume.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, so thank you to everyone for joining us. We didn't manage to call in Vladislav, which is a shame because he would have focused on youth and Eastern Europe and how the economic and social situation is over there and how the EU could establish a stronger relationship with countries from the Eastern Partnership. But maybe we will manage to get him on later, so we will see. And thank you all for being here. And I think I will pass the video on to Madeline, who will focus on on her own topic in a couple of seconds. So thank you all for being here, and have a great day, and good luck with your elections.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Hello there. I believe I'm back on. Amazing. Thank you very much, Paula, and thank you for leading that very interesting debate over there. We should now be turning, with a bit of luck, to Austria, and I can see that Yuso is also online. Hello, Yuso. Fresh out of a talk at Sciences Po Paris, because some of us are that fancy. Thank you, Yuso. Shall I hand over to you, Yuso?
Yes. So
okay.
On my screen, thank you very much. So this is Yuso, one of the editors of the New Federalist. You can see that there's a French language banner behind me, and that's because I'm at Sciences Po in Paris at the election nights. There's just Pascal Lamy speaking on the stage and other academics. But now we see on the screen we have Paolo Tinti from JEF Poland, the president of JEF Poland. And in our list of attendees, I can also see Leonie Martin, the vice president of JEF Europe. Leonie, Paolo, can you hear us? I cannot hear you, Paolo, if you're speaking at the moment.
Hi.
Hello. I think there may be a microphone issue. Which in a second. Okay.
Hello, there is Jakob Etzel from Austria.
And we have Jakob Etzel from Austria. Thank you very much to all of you for joining. So yeah, we are now taking Central Europe here. We could first go to Jakob from Austria. If you are there, I will turn your camera on as well so that the world can see you. So Jakob, can you first, in just a couple of sentences, tell us about the election results in Austria? It was a rather exceptional context in Austria this week.
Okay, so can you hear me here?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't hear you that well, so I'm not sure whether I got the question right, but I will just give you the current results here in Austria. I am at the official press center here in the House of the European Union, and we just had the Austrian Minister of Interior coming to the press center because, in contrast to the last European elections, we decided to officially announce the votes only after the last election station has closed in Italy, which has just been like 5 minutes ago. So the leader here is the ÖVP, which is the Conservative Party. They have around 34.5% of all the votes, followed by the Social Democrats with 23.5%. The third is the FPÖ, which is the, I would say, right-wing nationalist party here with 17.5%. And then we have the Greens and the Liberals. So what is interesting is maybe the changes of seats in the parliament we have. So the Conservatives, starting from 5 seats, were able to gain 2 new seats to 7, and the losses have been on the one side at the right-wing Freiheitliche Partei, and the losses have been with the Greens, which are now down from 3 to 2. The vote in Austria is particularly interesting because we are currently in the situation of dissolving our government. So just 1 week ago, we had a video leaking of the party leader and one of the main parliamentarian of our right-wing nationalist party, FPÖ, making holidays 2 years ago in Ibiza. And the video, full footage of 7 hours, is exposing this party leadership of corruption claims, of kind of praising the Hungarian system and getting a fake oligarch niece from Russia to buy Austrian meat outlets and so on. And this had a dramatic impact here in Austria. So we also saw that the voters' turnout rate was increasing from 45% to 55%. It has never been larger than that in the past decades. So voters' turnout had a plus of 10% point, which is a huge increase, and we all hope that this increase of voters' turnout here in Austria is not just due to this scandal of the FPÖ, we call it Ibiza-gate, but that it is also an effect that will last for the next parliamentary elections in 5 years, and so on. So far, first insights here from Austria.
Thank you for these comments. Now, I would like to return to the Chancellor Sebastian Kurz. So we have had this government crisis, but if we look onto the European stage, next week it's also going to be very interesting because there's going to be this summit where the first discussion is going to be had on top appointments, notably the European Commission President. Sebastian Kurz is famously very supportive of Manfred Weber, the lead candidate of the European People's Party. How far do you think that Kurz is going to go to support Weber's candidacy in this meeting next week?
Sir, I can't really understand you. The connection is very bad here. I heard something about Sebastian Kurz, who is the Chancellor here, and about the Commission. Did I get you right? Maybe you could repeat it
exactly
in just a few words.
So next week, when there is going to be a discussion over the Commission President, how far do you think Sebastian Kurz is going to go in supporting Manfred Weber?
Okay, I did not really get the question. It was something about the President, Sebastian Kurz. But what I can tell you is we currently do not yet know in which way the government is, the parliament is going to be dissolved, whether it's going to be the parliament itself dissolving or it's the president dissolving the parliament. And also tomorrow we're going to have a vote of confidence on the chancellor, so not on the government as a whole, but on the chancellor. And we also do not know how this vote of confidence tomorrow will turn out. It's very difficult to predict, but in any ways, politics are, how should I say, we will not immediately step into anarchy. So we're very much confident that even if the vote of confidence is successful tomorrow, that the Austrian federal president will take the appropriate measures, and elections will most likely take place in September.
Thank you. One thing that JEF Austria did before the elections was a coffee truck where you talked about Europe over coffee with the citizens. Could you share some of the experiences that you had with people ahead of the elections when you were discussing with them?
I did not really get the question. Maybe you just want to type it down in the WhatsApp group so I could see it, because the connection seems to be very bad.
Okay, I will just send you a message about the coffee truck. So indeed, JEF Austria had.
I see the coffee truck. Okay.
Indeed.
Yes. So JEF Austria has been co-participating in a campaign here with a coffee truck that was touring for all of Austria. So the two things to say about that. First of all, we hope that this had an impact on the plus 10% of voters turnout. If it's just 2% for the coffee truck and 8% for the Ibiza-gate videos, that would also already be a big achievement. But second thing is we have the coffee truck up and running here since 5 hours at the House of the European Union at the official press center, and a lot of high-ranking politicians, officials, media moderators have been at our place, drank a coffee from our coffee truck, and this is giving us a very good appearance as pro-European forces here in Austria.
Thank you very much for this. We are now moving a little bit eastwards. So there was a mention over this Hungarian-style press empire that the FPÖ was aspiring towards in Austria, but in Poland and in Hungary, this is already a reality to some extent. So we are now connecting with the president of JEF Poland, Paolo Tinti, and with the vice president of JEF Europe, Leonie Martin. Welcome. I will first go to Paolo. So in Poland, what has the night been like? What are the first results in just a couple of sentences?
Is that question still for me? So I have read the question about how far will Kurz go to support Weber, and I think there is a 100% support from the Austrian Conservatives for Manfred Weber as a president of the Commission. The Austrian Conservatives are very much committed to support Manfred Weber.
Thank you very much for this. I think we are traveling in time as we are speaking. So we have Sebastian Lang together with us from JEF Germany as well. I will now call Sebastian. Do you hear me? I think we struggle to hear Paolo. Okay, so Sebastian from Germany, officer of JEF Germany, and Germany is one of the big countries of the Union. Of course, you already had exit polls early in where the Greens will surge towards towards a better position. What updates had there been since the early evening in Germany? All right. I think we also have connection issues with Germany. It's getting interesting. All right. So, okay. So while we're waiting for Paolo and Sebastian to connect, we will just a minute. But Leonie, does your microphone work?
It does. Hi.
Yes, that is brilliant. So we will get back to the topic of a Hungarian-style media empire. The rule of JEF Europe. What have these elections viewpoint of rule of law and fair electoral competition?
Oh God, now I can't hear you. This is fun. So I only understood parts of your question.
About fair electoral competition in these elections, especially with regard to the bratty children of Europe.
So I'm still waiting. I'm looking at the Europe Elects Twitter page for results from Hungary, because otherwise I couldn't really tell you. But what I do want to share is, you know, how much the topic of rule of law has appeared within these elections, and also what kind of role they played within European political parties. Because I think we could see that it did not have direct effect, like it didn't, you know, it wasn't the biggest topic of the European political parties. But it did kind of drive forward an internal discussion in the European political parties. I think when it comes to, you know, the specific question that you had on, you know, what role did they play, does it play on European political parties, I think we need to ask this to you know, our member section there, because they're on the ground. They can precisely tell you what's going on, what's not going on. And I'm assuming it's basically a continuation of the elements that are already there and that we can already see with other elections. In Hungary, for instance, we've seen, we had the JEF and UEF joint seminar end of February. We saw that there was a poster campaign that was targeting Juncker. I mean, in fact, Sebastiano, a board colleague, and I, we played Sich Juncker because we were trying to count all of the different posters, because there were, I think, more than 80 in just like 14 kilometers, which is quite a lot, and which also heavily influences the way that, you know, Hungarian citizens view the European Union. If you see the Commission president and also a party friend, basically, in a very negative light, let's say. Similarly, in Hungary as well, there were poster campaigns targeting Guy Verhofstadt, so the ALDE leader, or the ALDE spokesperson, and Judith Sargentini, who was until July 1st a Dutch MEP from the Green Party, and was also the rapporteur for the Hungarian rule of law report that was adopted in September. And she's been basically personified as like the pure evil in Hungary, at least. So they've been on campaigns. Rule of law, I think it hasn't, as I said in the beginning, it hasn't been really like the main topic of political parties. It has been something that we've been asking for as JEF, so it was part of our demands for the European elections to have a mechanism, a rule of law mechanism. But what we could see is in quite some manifestos, it's not really mentioned. I think only, and I'm now talking about the European manifestos, ALDE mentions it, the Greens mention it, the Social Democrats, they talk about, strong tools, nothing more. With the EPP, perhaps I've overseen it, but I haven't read it. And similarly, this is also the way that the leading candidates were talking about rule of law during the TV debates, at least when we had the pleasure of seeing the debates. So Timmermans, with his two roles basically as a vice president, the first vice president, being the one that initiated the rule of law procedure for Poland, talking about this, obviously making this an advantage for himself, saying, it wasn't easy for me. This is addressing the second hat that he has, him being the leading candidate of the Social Democrats, and the Social Democrats, also being in charge in Romania and also having some rule of law allegations right there. I see someone's joining, that's good. So there's that. He has two different hats. The interesting thing for me was also in Dutch debates where we had Timmermans as obviously like the leading candidate for Dutch Labour debates. We also had representative of the Dutch Green Party, and obviously we're very proud of what Judith Sargentini managed with the report. So we also, we had two of the basic players in the law currently, both of them initiating Article 7. But I think these were the two main issues where I've seen rule of law. And then furthermore, debate on how political parties keep, manage European values in their own families very publicly. So we already saw in November when the EPP was electing its party leader or its leading candidate in Helsinki. We saw two different visions on how this should be handled. Weber was more trying to balance things, whereas Stubb was very clear on, these are the values of EPP. If you don't stick to them, you're out. And we all now know Weber has won. But by now, we had in March 20th, there was a suspension of membership of Fidesz, for instance. So this has clearly, driven this public debate inside and outside of the party. Obviously, in May, Fidesz then said that Weber will not get Fidesz votes. And similarly, a few weeks later, the Social Democrats also announced that they will be freezing membership of the Romanian party. So I think this is the only way that rule of law, European-wide at least, has influenced European elections.
Thank you for this roundup. You already alluded to this question a little bit, but I wanted to ask you if any of the early indications of the election results can give us hints as to how the next commission is going to tackle rule of law. Do you think it's going to be more forthright in addressing these issues, or is it going to be more reticent?
I think we still need to see how things are developing, and also, which one of the leading candidates is able to find a coalition that will support him in the council. What we can see is with the elections, the results that we know so far is that some of the parties have been basically punished by their electorate. So we see Romania. It was a shame that we couldn't fully listen to Zuro, but in Romania, the Social Democrats, they have a loss of 12.3%, and I think this has to do, obviously, in connection to the referendum that is also taking place in corruption at the moment. Definitely as a response to the way that they're handling Romanian politics at the moment. So I think we can't really say at the moment how the next commission is going to handle rule of law. We do know that the commission is going to talk about rule of law, a new rule of law framework in a few weeks. So I assume this flow is going to be continued, and I actually count on the next commission to continue this entire dialogue, because things need to change.
Thank you very much for this. We will now move on to our next speakers. So I will once more try calling Sebastian from Germany and Paolo from Poland. Can one of you hear us? I for one cannot hear you, but I see that we have online Noel O'Connell from the European Movement Ireland, and we also have Chris Powers from UEF UK and the British JEF section, Young European Movement UK. So I see Noel on the screen, and I see Chris.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Hi.
Yes.
Good.
We are still turning your camera on. I hope that it works.
No worries.
So, do we still have Maddie online, because Maddie is a British member of the TNF editorial team. So this very much touches all of us on screen at the moment.
Hello guys, I am still here. Just been having a cheeky glance at the early projections coming in from the UK, but I haven't abandoned you. I have got more coffee in the meantime, but I'm definitely still online. Let's start with you, Chris, if you can hear me. Chris, are you still online? In which case, maybe we can come to you, Noel, first, as we do seem to have managed to establish a connection with you. Can you paint a quick picture of what you anticipate the results being in Ireland, and how you think the turnout's been? Because I know turnout in Ireland was higher than a lot of other EU countries last time around.
Hi, how are you? Yes, sorry, I'm here at the Dublin European Count Centre, so the results are being counted behind us, as you can see. So
that's quite a backdrop.
From an Irish perspective, yeah. For this European Parliament elections, turnout is actually projected to be a little bit lower than it was in 2014. In fact, the lowest and below the EU average for the first time in over 20 years, what we're hearing.
Wow.
Yeah, which is obviously very disappointing to see that, but it is the first time that we have seen a lower turnout, and looks like it's going to be below the EU average again for the first time in over 20 years. Why is that? I think it's because we have had somewhat maybe of Brexit fatigue. Interestingly, the candidates that have advocated for Ireland to leave the EU, that level of voting support has been really low. The Green Party have done really well, so we have seen a green wave here in Ireland. And also the two main centre parties have done well as well. So Fine Gael, the EPP aligned party, and Fianna Fáil, the ALDE aligned party, have also done well. But I think the big story from an Irish perspective is that turnout is a little bit lower than we would like. And the Green Party, the Green Wave, has also been very successful here in Ireland as well.
That is interesting, because I would have anticipated that the whole Brexit story would have actually pushed more people to go and vote.
Yeah, traditionally in Ireland, the European Parliament elections are considered second-tier elections, and it is also taking place the same day as our local council elections. And also we have some of the cities in Ireland have mayoral plebiscites, and we also have had a divorce referendum. So people had a lot to vote on Friday. So it was a busy
if they're going to the polls anyway, then I would anticipate that if they're going to the polls anyway, you just cross another box. But it's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we think turnout overall is going to be about 49%, which is down on what it was last time. It was 52.4. So we got to look at that.
Okay, really interesting. And what have been the main topics discussed during the election campaign? What have been the main stakes?
Climate change, sustainability, jobs and growth, and our future of Europe has come up. Brexit hasn't featured and hasn't been as much of an issue as it might have been before, which is obviously interesting. I think people are very exercised by it naturally, because it is going to impact us here in Ireland more closely than other EU member states. But I do sense a weariness and a fatigue in relation to Brexit amongst the Irish electorate here. So that I think that has certainly impacted on voter turnout.
Okie dokie. We're going to ask you to stay online for a few minutes. I'm going to come to Chris, if you can hear me over there.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yes, I can hear you. That's
Good.
great. This is the first technical thing that's gone right this evening, so
Oh, wow.
that's good to know. Chris, I think we feel a little bit of solidarity with Noel over here. I mean, we're in a very weird situation. We weren't supposed to be having these elections in the first place. What is the climate like over in the UK?
All right. First thing I'll say is I'm struggling to hear you because Noel's mic is really loud. But you asked what the climate's like over here.
Exactly, yeah.
It's a little strange actually because we voted back on Thursday, so there's been such a long time where it's felt like that since then that it's not the same atmosphere I'm seeing from my friends over in Brussels and elsewhere. We all kind of assume, in a way, yeah. And I'm half expecting that the results are going to come out in the middle of this conversation. But we all assume Brexit Party is going to do really well, and the question is, what's going to happen with the other parties, and that's what we're interested in over here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my impression is that we're in the UK at the moment. We don't really care about the candidates. We don't really care about the other topics of the debate. It's all about sending a message to the government and maybe avoiding the main parties. Is that your impression as well?
Yeah, I mean, the wider debates in Europe haven't hit home here at all. The closest we've had is the climate crisis has been mentioned a little bit, and I've heard and seen that Germany looks like it will have done well in this regard. So the Greens in the UK have tried to use that, but it's totally been about supporting Remain parties to send a message about Brexit. And I think the big story of the evening will be what's happened to the Labour Party, how badly hit has their vote been, because they haven't taken a clear stance on that question. So yeah, everything's about Brexit now.
Yeah. So kind of the opposite to what we're seeing in Ireland then, Noel.
Yeah. It's interesting because we just did a poll a couple of weeks ago that bore out the findings of Eurobarometer, with 93% of Irish people wanting Ireland to remain an active and committed member of the European Union, which we're seeing is directly a corollary of the challenges across the water in terms of Brexit. But how we convert that positive sentiment into voter turnout. Interestingly, in that same poll, only 56% of the 18 to 24-year-olds said that they intended to vote. Now, we don't have the figures yet for what actual turnout was, but if that's the case, that is really, really disappointing to see that, particularly in light of the massively high turnout amongst that demographic for our abortion and marriage equality referendum. So it's something we've certainly got to look at, but I suppose we'll take the good news is that there's been a lot of positive pro-EU sentiment, and those parties seem to have done well in these elections, with the Green Party and that green wave being somewhat unexpected, the level of support.
And how does that compare with the UK, Chris, in terms of youth engagement? Have you seen your peers sort of reacting positively to the chance to have their say in the European elections, or is it more of a kind of apathy?
I definitely don't think there's apathy. Strangely, it's not been something that's been spoken about very much. And I imagine once the results have come in, people will start making claims about how many young people have voted and if turnout has been high or not. I think we expect that turnout for this election will be higher than the 2014 one. Young people are switched on. The people I speak to, which is obviously a bit of a bubble, they are very keen to vote, and they are very keen to get others to vote. There have been more questions about it this time. At debates for the candidates, at least in the Eastern region, we've seen more young people turning out. But I wouldn't say it's been a radical change. I think young people are quietly voting more, and then they're participating in politics in ways besides voting, and that hasn't changed.
I mean, initial estimates have shown that turnout has increased a bit in Remain areas and sort of stagnated in these areas. Do you think that could have a significant impact on the results, or not massively?
I hope it does.
Yeah, me too.
But honestly, I'm not sure. I think we're all pretty pessimistic here that Brexit Party is going to do really well. I think there's a bit of pessimism that Labour is still not going to do as badly as we'd perhaps hoped in terms of sending a message. So our bar is quite low, is what I'm saying. Like we're happy to be surprised pleasantly, but we're pretty much ready for the worst.
Any good news, we'll take it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's pretty mad that, in terms of the Brexit Party, I mean, they literally don't have a manifesto.
No, but then nor do really any of the parties in this election. I mean, the UK didn't know it was participating officially until, like, what, 2 weeks ago? We could have guessed a bit earlier than that, but they've all been slow. And the thing I would say with the Brexit Party is it is essentially new UKIP, and they are transferring from being the biggest party with a purple colour to being the biggest party with a turquoise colour, but it's still the same crazy person at the top, and they're all following him. So it's not as radical a change as it might look on the surface.
Changing the packaging and not the products, then. Okay. Noel, one last question. Is it going to be a long night for you? I can see that the counting is still in full swing behind you.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a long night, or are you headed home shortly?
Still going on. It's still going on. I think last time around we finished up at around 5 a.m. But due to the way we have our voting system here, the PRSTV, the transferable vote, it's going to be the middle of the week when probably some of the other constituencies come through with the final count. So a long couple of days for a lot of the candidates. So we'll be watching it closely.
And for the people counting, then I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of tea and coffee.
Lots of tea and coffee. Yeah, I think they've earned it as well. I've got the tea and coffee going on over here as well. So I hope you've got a cup handy as well. I think you've deserved it as well.
I'm going ahead getting it now after this.
Okay, yeah, okay. I like to hear that. Guys, thank you so much for joining. It's been really enlightening talking to you and getting a flavour of the atmosphere in those two respective countries. Fingers are crossed for both of you for the results coming in. And I think we're going to be moving back on to, are we going to try Paolo again? Paolo, are we going to have one more time? I've been seeing your face popping up on the side of the screen.
I think Paolo and Sebastian are on and off. How about Sebastian?
Hi, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect, Sebastian. Thank you.
Okay, let's go.
So we are.
Can you even see me? Oh!
Hallelujah.
Let's just hope that it stays for half a minute, huh?
Yes. So in Germany, we had exit polls in the early evening already, and the Greens were surging in these polls. What has happened since the early evening? Is it still looking the same in Germany?
I would say so. I mean, the overall picture hasn't changed. We have, on the one hand, significant losses in the two former large parties, which is the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats. Both have severe losses. Particularly the Social Democrats are still around 12% losses. So that's coming close to half the result they had last time. And on the other hand, we have the big winners, which are the Greens. The first polls were more optimistic. There was more around 11, sometimes even I think 12%. It's now down to still plus 10%, which is really means that they double their result compared to 2014. So yeah, we have kind of a massive shift in the party landscape, which is kind of continuing a trend that we've seen in previous elections in the past years. That the big parties we had so far are not so big anymore, and we kind of the whole party landscape is being leveled, so to say. So that all the parties are getting closer together. The smaller ones are still growing a little bit, most of them, and the two large parties are really down to let's say medium-sized parties. So we have no clear picture anymore of two leading blocks. Yeah, so clear winner are the Greens. I think what's also it's not a surprise, but it's a fairly positive result. Is that the far right is not as strong as some would have thought. During the evening, they've grown stronger, but still they're below 11%. And in the polls before, they have been seen by 12 or even more percent. So we're a bit below what's happened. Yeah. So I think maybe we have two main things. We have two winners. Winner number one is the Green Party. Winner number two is turnout. Turnout is up to 61.5% compared to
That's impressive.
48 in 2014. So that's really massive. I think that's something we should really be happy about. And I think the second thing is we didn't have the Weber effect, which was often being hoped for by the conservatives, who all thought that if we have our Spitzenkandidat from Germany for the Commission presidency, that we have significant growth in our turnout there. That actually hasn't happened. There's a slight increase for the CSU, so the party that actually is Manfred Weber's party. They are up, I think, a bit less than 1%. Yeah, no, it's 1% now, I think. So a slight increase. The point is that the partner of CSU, the Christian Democrats in the rest of Germany outside Bavaria, they have had massive losses. So all in all, there's no Weber effect, which was the big hope that the conservatives have had.
This Weber effect kind of points to my next question. I was already asking Austria about Manfred Weber and how far the Austrian leader is going to go in support of Manfred Weber's candidacy for European Commission. Now, Sebastian Kurz is one of the most famous supporters of Weber, but of course he comes from Germany, he comes from Angela Merkel's party or sister party. So what do you expect from Germany in the EU summit next week?
Yeah, good question. I think the official line remains what has been the official line in the past weeks, that Mr. Weber is their candidate and that he's the Spitzenkandidat of the Christian Democrats. I think it makes it very difficult for the CDU, CSU to advocate for Manfred Weber given the results. As even in Bavaria, we have only a very slight increase compared to 2014. And we have massive losses for the CDU in the rest of Germany. So it makes it even more difficult for those who kind of are in favor of promoting Weber on the council now to actually do that, because there is not so much of a positive effect where he could claim his strong and his positive influence on the election results. So I think there is still some room for him to be the Spitzenkandidat of the German Christian Democrats, but I think the result is really, it doesn't make things much easier for him in the next weeks to come.
Thank you very much for these comments. In the meantime, I'm getting messages. We have microphone issues with Paolo, but he's giving us an update about the performance of the Polish opposition. So in Poland, pro-European parties, anti-government parties made a big coalition, and now this coalition is neck and neck with the Law and Justice Party, the government. I can now see Paolo's hand on the screen. Can I also hear you, Paolo?
You can hear me now or not?
Yes.
Oh, that's
this
perfect.
Is now starting to work. Perfect.
I hear you now, but now I can tell you that I just came back from the evening of Platform Civic and all the European coalition, because for this election we create the alliance with the Greens, with the Left Party, the former post-communist, with the Modern Party, so the all liberals, all the left, and all the Greens and Christian Democrats from EPP went together to this election. And at the end, as I saw, we get around 39% of votes. But unfortunately, the Law and Justice, the current government, get like 42%. After these elections, I can assure you that these elections were really concerned about the national, the domestic things. So the Law and Justice invests around 10 billions of euro from the national budget to this campaign, because they promised extra social funds for the citizens. And Platform Civic fight with Law and Justice by showing that they are not following the rule of law. For example, the problems of our judicial system. For example, that they stolen money in some public companies which are owned by government. But unfortunately, we cannot win as this alliance. But it's not bad, because before the Law and Justice was stronger than us by like 10 to 15%, but now it's on like 3%, and we still wait for the final result. And maybe we were like Law and Justice, so we get around 40%. We don't know still, because the problem with this polls is that all the televisions get one company to provide these polls. Even the public television, which is completely controlled by Law and Justice. So probably at the end, the commissions could share the infos that we win, because this 3% is still less that we can expect from polls, because we can win by the 4%. They could fall by 4%. We don't know, but for now they win. Well, when it comes to the next things, and especially our autumn elections to the parliament, to the national parliament, as I heard from the leaders of oppositions, they state that they want to be together. They don't want to divorce. So probably that's a good thing for our national elections, and we can go together to them, and we can win the next elections, which are probably more important for Poland, where the Poland will go. And well, I can say that the problem was that the oppositions cannot reach the young leaders, and the leaders of oppositions are from the past. It's a problem, because Poland needs a new political leader, and there was some. Yeah. You hear me?
We shall go to the national. Thank you very much for these comments. How about now? So, thank you very much for these comments, Paolo. We shall be looking for where Poland is going next, and if Poland is getting new leadership after next.
Because I cannot hear you.
I think we will now jump to the other side of Germany, and so we have Southern European countries here. We have Antonio Argenziano from JEF Italy, Meister Caldel from. Can you guys hear me, Antonio and Jess? Antonio? Okay, I think we. All right, Antonio's screen is showing up. Hello. Can you hear us over there in Italy? I think the microphone is not on yet. We'll try to get you reconnected and at the same time chess. So the issue is with getting the sound connected.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we now hear Antonio. Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. So
Hi,
in
everyone.
Italy, hello. In Italy, the polling stations just closed at 11 p.m. It's not a long time ago. What can we say about the elections in Italy? One of the from the viewpoint of Europe.
Yeah. Well, couple of things. First thing, the provisions about the number of voters are quite good in the sense that for sure we overcame the result of the 2014. We should be a little under the 60% of voters, and that's quite a good result. That actually was quite expected. A little improvement compared to the 2014. Then for sure we will have the Lega of Matteo Salvini, that will be the first party. According to the provisions of a couple of months ago, actually the Lega lost some votes, but it's very close to the 30% of preferences. Should be, I think, around 27, 28. I don't know. Of course, right now we have the exit poll, so this is the average, more or less. There is a fight between the Partito Democratico and the Five Star Movements, because they should be. Sorry. Okay, I finish quickly. They should be around 20%, 21%, and then all the other parties that will overcome the 4% of that is the barrier to overcome to access to the European Parliament. Only the other two center-right and center-right party will do it. In all Europe, there's been a green wave. Not in Italy, because the Greens have they are between 1% and 2%, so they won't make it.
Thank you. I'm now drawing onto a kind of concerns Lega, so I'm going to the negative. There has been all this discussion of the alliance that would be led by Matteo Salvini. How does that seem from the viewpoint of the Italian results and the results in other countries in Europe? How likely the Eurosceptics manage to pull themselves out of parliament?
I think that is far more difficult to have this kind of an alliance, just because the second biggest enemy of these nationalist parties after Europe is the European Union and are themselves. Sorry, the biggest enemy for the nationalists after Europe is the other nationalists. So this is the kind of contradiction that they are living. I think it would be they will try to build such an alliance, also because maybe it's not like that in other countries, but in Italy, everyone from left to right, liberals, Greens, everyone is saying we have to change Europe. There is this perception of the need to change something, and also the evolution of these nationalists is not say anymore we have to leave the euro or we have to leave the European Union, but what Salvini is keeping saying is now we have the political strength to change Europe. The manifesto, the motto of Meloni, Fratelli d'Italia, is another far-right party that will be in the European Parliament. The motto is change Europe, in Europe to change everything. So this is the kind of approach we are all having, but it will be difficult to find this kind of alliance to make it real. And what I hope is that will be more a political dialectic within the European Parliament, and that the usual alliance of parties won't be an alliance to keep the status quo, but to change something before the nationalists will do it.
As my last question to you, Antonio, I'm just asking you if you have one policy elections. What makes you the most optimistic about this result?
Well, the positive the positive point is that Lega and Cinque Stelle actually are taking less than we expected a few weeks ago. And I think the big hope we have to have is that we are going to have a more difficult political struggle in the European Parliament, and it is good, because I think the real losers of this election are the one who wants to keep the status quo. This is a very important point, and so I hope that this growth of nationalists and this growth of extremist parties will call a reaction, a fight back. The other parties have to fight back, and we are seeing it all over Europe, where the traditional parties like the PPA or the SD parties are just saying we have to keep what we have. They are losing consensus in favor of, for example, the Greens, that are proposing something new, that are proposing to change something, of course, mostly on the environmental issues, but not only.
Thank you very much. We now see Cesc. Cesc, can you hear me and can you understand me?
Bye, Cesc. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you very much for this commentary. So we're moving on to another southern European country. We have Spain and Cesc Montecardel from JEF Spain. Hello, good evening.
Hi, just a good evening.
So in Spain, there just was national elections 1 month ago, and back then the Social Democrats won the elections. Is it looking similar in these European elections 1 month later?
Yeah, indeed. We now have almost 100% of votes counted, because polling stations close in Spain at 8 p.m. and then at 9 p.m. they close in the Canary Islands, because they're 1 hour in a different time zone. We already have almost all votes counted, and apparently the Social Democrats, the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, has won 20 seats out of 54, with the second being the People's Party with 12 seats out of 54. Then Ciudadanos with 7 seats, Podemos with 6, Vox, the far-right party, with 3 seats. Then other republics now with Catalan, Basque, and Galician independentists with 3 seats. Then Junts per Europa, the list of the former Catalan president Carles Puigdemont, with 2 seats. And then Coalición por una Europa Solidaria of the center-right Basque Nationalist Party with a single seat.
Thank you very much. So 20 seats out of 54, that's a very strong national delegation that the Spanish socialists are sending to the European Parliament. Now, what do you think are going to be the implications for Spain's role within the socialist family and within the next European Parliament in general?
Actually, well, with the results in hand, I haven't been able to follow other member states' results, but I guess the Spanish Socialist Party will probably be the largest national delegation in the Socialist and Democrats group. So it will probably impact in the amount of influence Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez will have in the following years in European politics.
Let's take one last question. In Spain, we also have the regional dimension. You mentioned the results of regionalist parties. Are there any conclusions that we can draw for Catalonia and for the Basque Country from these European election results? Do regionalists fare better in European elections than national ones, for example?
Yeah, actually, the socialists managed to get much, more or less, they got the same percentage of votes. However, there was an obvious loser, or two obvious losers of this night's elections, namely Ciudadanos, which in the snap election last month had managed to almost match the People's Party's votes. This time they've got 7 seats against the People's Party's 12. And the other obvious loser has been the far-right party Vox, which was expected to get around 5 or 6 seats and only managed to get 3.
Thank you very much, Cesc, and have a good rest of the night over there in Madrid. Now we have one more national capital to go to before we then go to our concluding remarks, and we have Maddie back online. And I believe that we have Ine Tollenaers from JEF Belgium.
So it's an important capital that we're going to, rather fitting that we've left Belgium almost to the end. Let's try and get you guys online. Ine, can you hear me at all?
She has just disappeared.
Yeah, she has just disappeared. I literally was thinking the same thing.
So in Belgium, of course, what is interesting is the fact that there is, first of all, mandatory voting, and on the other hand, there is regional lists. So Wallonia and Flanders vote separately. We're trying to find Ine back. Ine is here. Let's make another attempt with Ine.
Oh, this looks promising.
Hi, sorry, can you hear us?
Hello, Ine. Can you hear me? Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you dearly.
Fantastic. You're very quiet, but I think it will do. Perhaps you can speak right into the microphone for the rest. So yeah, as Yuso was saying, Belgium's a really interesting case because you've got the separate lists in Flanders and Wallonia. What are the results looking like so far in Belgium?
Sorry, what you said something about separate lists, and then you got broken up a bit.
Sorry, the sound isn't perfect. You've got the 2 separate lists and yet one member state. What are the results looking like overall in Belgium this evening?
So, indeed, overall, we see, especially in Flanders, a move to the right, very far right. So, in Flanders, we have 12 seats to the European Parliament, and 3 of those are going to the far right party. Well, they have only 1 now, so that's quite a shift to the right. I am personally very disappointed with the result. But then for the rest, there are no surprises. So there's 3 seats for the Flemish nationalists, and both the Liberals and the Christian Democrats have 2 seats, and then we have 1 more for the Socialists and 1 more Green, which is quite expected.
Okay, so a few surprises, but also some things going according to the plan. What's the impact in Belgium of the mandatory voting? Who benefits from that? They'll have to go vote.
So I'm just gonna assume what the question was about the mandatory voting, and yes, we do have mandatory voting, and my gut feeling would say that benefits the more traditional parties. But in fact, we have seen still this move to the right, especially in Flanders. It's and also a rise of the Greens in Wallonia.
Interesting.
So, although it does benefit traditional parties, I would say the result is still surprising in that regard.
And in your campaigns with JEF, are you seeing young people being more engaged, do you think, in Belgium than elsewhere because they know they have to go and vote? Or does it not really make a difference?
So I think for us in JEF, the difficulty is to cut through the noise about the European issues, because a lot of people are talking about more national level issues, and especially the migration crisis, which is actually a European one, but it's not discussed as a European issue.
Okay, and obviously as Federalists, we're kind of interested in the visibility of in Belgium. I mean, you've got some Spitzenkandidaten just over the border. How is the debate of the Spitzenkandidaten in Belgium? What is the general opinion?
I think it actually was more in the front newspapers last time when we had our own Spitzenkandidat with Guy Verhofstadt. He is now still part of Team Europe for the ALDE group. But I don't think Frans Timmermans and Bas Eickhout really get more coverage in comparison to other Spitzenkandidaten that are not speaking the same language.
Okie dokie. And one last question. You seem to be in a very interesting venue. Can you explain where you are?
So I didn't really get the question, but we are now at the European Parliament, as you can see in the video right now. And there was a big event today for the European elections where civil society organizations had little stands in front of the European Parliament, and there was a live screening of the results. So it was all super interesting. It has ended now with the nice rain showers, so perfect Belgian weather. But it was nice to see a lot of nationalities coming together in front of the European Parliament, and inside there was also a screening where a lot of the Spitzenkandidaten and other top candidates came to sit in the plenary of the Brussels Parliament. Well, of the Brussels seat of the European Parliament.
Got it. I'm with you. I'm going to let you get away now. I'm sure it's been a very long day for you. I'm sure the atmosphere has been great at the European Parliament, but you're ready to head home anyway. We are going to pass over. Thank you very much to JEF Belgium. Thank you, Guy, for joining us. And we are going to head over to Chris in just a second. Chris, you are online. This is wonderful. I'm going to hand over.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, indeed.
Okay, so technology does not fail us.
Fantastic. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Chris and his work, would you like to introduce yourself, Chris?
Yes, sure. So my name is Chris Glück, and I'm the president of JEF Europe, which is the umbrella organization of all of our national JEF sections. And next to me is Sebastiano, who put me loud just now. So if you heard an echo, that was his phone. I'm here in the JEF Secretariat. So this is where the daily work of JEF happens, where we plan and carry out our projects. And it's very close to the Parliament. So I was before coming here, I was just with Ine on the esplanade of the European Parliament, and also got some of the rain shower. Which was a good ending to this.
Inevitable, I would say, inevitable. Before we move on to the election results, just a word from you as president of JEF. I mean, you must have overseen and seen all the different branches of JEF coordinating a massive number of campaigns and a massive number of demonstrations, street actions. What has your overall impression been, and are you a little bit proud of the work that all of the JEF branches have undertaken?
Yeah, so this was probably the thing we said most often this evening amongst the European level people that were here in Brussels tonight from the executive board. We are immensely proud of the work that's been done by our entire network over the past months. We can't win this debate for federal Europe, and we can't win this debate for these European Parliament elections and the turnout all on our own. But what we can do as a youth organization, I think we really did the maximum we could. And now when we look at the results, we can look at them with the good feeling that what was possible for us to do, we did. And it's been a source of enormous pride for us to see all of these actions carried out, all of the campaigns, the visibility we managed to get. And certainly here in Brussels, which of course is a bit of a bubble, the European NGO world here in Brussels, but we got noticed in the last Choose Europe campaign, something everybody has heard and seen about. So that was a really good feeling this evening.
I can well imagine. So one of the positive messages I think we're taking away from this evening is turnout has improved in quite a few countries. Are we, as JEF, claiming credit for that?
Of course, not. We're not the only source of that. I don't think, but we're part of it. We're part of the people who continuously over many years, not just us in the last months, but generations of JEFers have tried to make Europe a topic that is debated and make the European elections about European topics and bring the European element into the national debates, put issues that we care about, European federalism, but also policy solutions on different issues that we want to see into the debate on the table. And it's something that, you don't win from one day to the other, but it's nice to see that finally it is going up and European elections are really seen as something relevant and important. I think not only has the turnout been massively improved, surprisingly high turnout numbers in some countries, and pretty much across the board an improvement, which is fantastic to see. But also I think in terms of the debates that were had, it's been the most European elections. Still, there is an element of national elections being held, but much less than in the past. Those were 28 national elections held in the same week, and much more than ever before. I think common issues of European policies were debated. Much more is to be done. We're far from satisfied, of course, with how this election campaign was carried out. And some of the ideas that we've been proposing for so many years, a proper Spitzenkandidaten debate, transnationalists, these things would help so much doing that. I hope we'll see it for the next elections. But I think it's a good sign that people take the European Parliament seriously, and that the European Parliament is in fact the house of the European people. So yeah, the high turnout is probably the best news from this evening.
Okay. Here, I mean, you talk about Europeanization of the debate and looking at the wider picture. I mean, there's still quite a few countries where we're very much sending very national messages, and obviously these elections are taking part in quite a particular context. There's a sort of strange backdrop of sort of the rise in populism and Brexit and things like that. What for you has been the sort of defining issue across Europe of these elections?
I think certainly what explains this green wave is almost all of the national elections in these European elections. It's been new in this campaign. So climate and the question, how do we as Europeans tackle this challenge, is something that certainly was a topic, if not in all member states, then in most of the member states. And I think that might have been one of the defining features of this election campaign. And part of the explanation why the Greens are coming back with a much larger group than in previous years. And then there's other issues that I think were on the table in most member states. Migration certainly is something where people still look for European answers because they weren't delivered when the situation was acute. There's also a continuous problem about the economy. Not in all countries. So in some countries this debate is a bit absent, but in other countries very much a debate. And national security is also that was debated all across the EU.
Very nice. We're coming to the end of this broadcast now. Do you have anything final you want to add? Any concluding remarks, your impressions of the day overall, or of the campaigns?
No, as I said, the campaign I think was really, really good, and we're really proud to have seen JEF pulling so hard. But the work is not done now, and when we look at the new parliament, there's going to be a number of things to be watched. The one question is, will the groups quickly enough align themselves in the new formations, which in part need to be built, in part need to be readjusted. There are questions that still need to be answered. Will Syriza join the Social Democratic family? Will Fidesz continue to be part of EPP? These things need to be resolved. The question who will lead these groups. Will all of this happen quick enough and fast enough for the parliament to be able to really push the question of the lead candidate vis-a-vis the council, which tries to move ahead very quickly and nominate a person on their own? So there is certainly something where also when our debate is over now, we need to be watchful and need to voice our opinion on what needs to happen now with regards to the parliament nominating the candidate for the European Commission. But also, it's not, for us, it's not neutral as to who that candidate is. We want a candidate who is based by a majority in the parliament that supports reforms in the EU, that wants changes, that wants to fix the problems we have in the EU. And Antonio alluded to that earlier when he said those parties who stood for the status quo and for no change, they took a beating in this election. And I think that message needs to be brought back to the parliament from day one, to say now we have a mandate and you guys have a mandate to make changes happen, because this right-wing bloc that we will have in the parliament now and that will make it more uncomfortable to work in the parliament is not just going to go away. It's only going to go away if we are able to provide the European solutions and answers that people are looking for. So that is very much what we as JEF will now need to focus on, to keep up the pressure, to keep up communication with our elected representatives and talk to them time and time again about the answers that we want to see. So yes, taking a little break after this election campaign is, I think, well deserved, and then it's back to work to us, because there's so much still to do.
And given the amount of work and the amount of different campaigns that all the different JEF branches have managed to achieve, I think we need to start preparing now for the elections in 2024. With all the work that's gone into it this time around. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. It's probably been a very long day for you. I think we'll let you head off now.
It's been a good day though.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you so much for the show. It was nice to watch every now and then while we were at our own election party here in Brussels. We tuned in every now and then. It was I think a really good thing to do. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure, and well, it's obviously not just us, the hosts, that have gone into doing this, but the JEF EB, the people behind the scenes who have been taking care of all the technical difficulties, of which there have been a fair number, and all of the speakers who have given up a part of their evening to come and speak to us. So thank you to my co-hosts Yuso and Paola, but of course it's not just us. There's been plenty of other people coming together to make this possible. So a very cheesy thank you note to end on, perhaps, saying thank you to everybody. It really is getting more and more like Eurovision as the night goes on, so it is perhaps better to...
perhaps the European elections need to be a bit more like the ESC.
I mean, perhaps that is the solution to all of our problems. Okay, so that brings our elections night broadcast to a close. Thank you very, very much for joining us. As I say, thank you to all our speakers. We've certainly got some positive messages to take away from these elections. Thank you very, very much for watching, for tuning in, and I wish you a good evening. Good night.
Good night. Ciao.
Ciao.